decrease the tax burden on the townspeople.
Alan, what page is that on? Do you know?
It's the initial
Right on
page,
page one.
and if you just go under the tax valuation,
Okay.
392 million.
yeah, usually every year that goes up because of the valuation of primarily of new homes, or if anybody's doing any substantial renovation to their home, the tax assessor will have gone to their home and their valuation would have gone up.
We have to work with the figures that we're given.
Oh, I totally understand, but I'm just saying that that is something that I would imagine once the select board determines what the new mill rate will be, they should be adjusting that.
If I recall correctly, they said earlier in one of our meetings that they weren't going to touch that because the assessing gets done after the town meeting, or gets done so late that they won't have the figures in time.
All set.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right, then we will start with general government, which is page page 10 on the budget report provided to us. Any opening remarks, or anybody ready to make a motion? What is your pleasure?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I move that we use for general government, use the numbers that is in the select board budget. And the reason for that is, I think we're looking at an 18-month budget with a lot of uncertainty. And I know some folks did some work on paring it down, and I appreciate that. I think we're looking at a budget that has some uncertainty, and I guess that's where I am on that one. So I move we accept it.
so I need a number figure with that
Jason, 1
motion.
second. It is, total general government is $1,143,060. Bottom of page 11 in your handout.
So there has been a motion, is there a second?
A second for discussion.
Second.
Jill is a second. So there's been a motion made to accept the select board's recommendation of $1,143,060 for the total general government. Been first and seconded, I'll open it up for discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
so I went through the budget last week, and I did send out a spreadsheet as a food for thought to everyone. I don't know if anyone looked at it or not. And I tried to look at the three departments that I knew we'd be voting on, I thought we'd be voting on: general government, public safety, and public works. And I kind of adopted a hybrid approach to try to reduce the spending in the budget. So what I did was, I went to because we're gonna be voting on this, if we don't accept the select board's as is, we're gonna be voting on this as total administration, assessing, total information technology, and planning and code, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So what I did was, I adopted Jill's approach, which was to multiply the larger of the budget or actual from last year times 1.03 for a 3% increase. And in this case, it was actual, was larger. And I came up with an 18-month budget of $742,031
For administration.
for administration. And then I went to assessing and left that as is, because it was down, obviously. I went to information technology, and I reduced that to $98,600 by reducing, what did I reduce?
Text gov.
Yeah, TextGov, right?
And it looks like something about hardware.
So I reduced information technology to 98.6, and I reduced planning and codes to 192.04, which was last year's budget times 1.03. So I come up with a total for total government, general government of 106,537, which is a 4.4% increase, I believe.
4.4 increase versus a 14.1 increase?
Excuse me, 6.4.
Yeah, is that what you're saying?
6.4.
It's a 6.4 increase versus the proposed 14.1 increase?
Yes. For general government.
Yep. Further discussion?
So when I had chatted about it, I said increase by 3.5%, being consistent with New England's CPI. Is there a reason why you
Yeah,
reduced it to 3?
Because we're paying the 5%, the 0.5% of the Family Leave Act.
Okay, okay. My concern with the general government is the fact that it is growing so greatly, and there seems to be a lot of programs and services that have been initiated without townspeople approval. You know, when the fire department wanted to add an extra shift for night per diem, they waited until they got the town's permission to do it. And my concern is that the general government isn't doing that. And from what I can understand, all the new things that they want to do were already locked into a contract to do it. And I'm also concerned once we use up our fund balance, especially general government increased by 10% last year. It's increasing by 14% this year. If it continues on that trajectory, how are we going to be able to afford it when we don't have the fund balance to offset it?
John?
Yeah, the reason I recommended this was, I think, and rightfully so, that we should look at what the cost is gonna be, but I think we also need to look at the services that are gonna be provided. And we look at the employees that we have and what kind of pay raises we're gonna give them. And I'm not sure that and Neil, I know, did a great job on it, that was taken into consideration. We're just we're cutting 8,000, which is not a big deal, out of the text.gov or whatever it may be. But that's a new program that's getting used by 900 and some people, myself included. So I think it's premature to cut that. And I think that the $7,500 for IT equipment was a reasonable 18-month budget. And there's so much uncertainty in what we're gonna do over the next 18 months. People-wise, equipment-wise, so on and so forth, so.
I guess the problem, sorry, am I allowed to speak? I guess the problem I see with that is that once it tends to get in the budget, then next year we're just extrapolating off of that versus line by line. Line by line seems to be going away. And so that makes me nervous, that it's automatically in there and then we just keep adding or, yeah, building from there.
The other part of it is, the people are looking at 18 months. They didn't really expect to have this dumped on them. It's gonna really confuse escrow. It's gonna add to it, no matter what, and it's gonna confuse the banks and everything. We just know they're gonna. So it makes it really hard. The people cannot, there's a lot out here still that are on fixed budgets that cannot just keep going up and up and up. And I know last year you said, well, they've gotta expect to pay, and even though the government didn't, the school does. So no matter what, they're paying more and more and more. And I think if we could hold the line as close as we can on this one and knock it down some, that it would be better for the people. And then the following budget, we'll have some good figures for a change, because all we've had are figures that they keep throwing out, and what they think, and what they feel. Well, the feel and all that is not, we need solid figures. And we, as the last budget meeting that I was at, I was told that we would get nice, good, solid one-year figures, not go 18 months. So now that they've chose to do that, I think we should help the people get through the 18 months.
John, you had your hand.
Well, I was gonna answer to, speak to James, which is, I hear what you're saying, but this doesn't, all we're doing on this one is, other than cutting text.gov, we're really not doing a line by line, budget cut. But we're doing it, in my mind, and, you know, that we have great employees, so I think we need to make sure that we're able to reward them. And opposite of what you said, Don, is I think the fact that it is 18 months is all the more reason to not cut it down to bare bones. I mean, last year's budget was 1% above whatever. A 1% margin is, in my mind, not a lot to run this town for 18 months. And those people who are, and I get it, I mean, you know, that nobody likes to have their taxes go up. But we have a tremendous amount of services that we're providing that cost money, and that's not going down. The cost of the services is not going down, so.
Jane?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, I know we're doing a budget for 18 months, but we're not getting billed for 18 months, we're gonna get billed, I'm thinking, I thought twice.
Yeah, we'll have 2 9-month bills. I mean, we don't really, they haven't announced how they're splitting it up, except that we're gonna get 2 bills.
Yes.
To,
John?
yeah, but to your point on the, yeah, it was a 1% increase in the overall tax rate because we used savings. The budget for general government last year went up 10%. And now it's going up another 14%.
That, see if I raise my hand.
Are you done? Are you done?
I have to kick me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the back and forth with John.
Yeah. My 1% comment was not about the taxes. It was when the auditor gave their presentation on 2024 or whatever year it was. We had, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, we had spent around 1% less than what we had budgeted, which is a real narrow margin. And they said you should be trying to be 2 to 3%. So does that make sense?
Okay.
So it's not the fact of how much taxes went up, down, or otherwise. It was that after 12 months, we only had 1% to spare, if you will, on the budget. And 18 months with a lot of unknowns in there. And I guess my last comment would be, trying to get down less than this is, we're taking it out of town services so that the school doesn't have to do that. I mean, they're coming in at 7.2, the county came in at 9.6. It's extremely hard to get down to 2.5, 3, 3.5 even, when everybody else, school being the biggest chunk of the budget, keeps going up. I don't think it's fair to cut our services because they won't cut, so.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I don't see us cutting any services. They're getting a 6.4% increase in general government, so I don't think there's any services being cut. What's being cut, possibly, we're so limited in the tools we have. They want more legal fees. They want to hire a HR person. I think it's very reasonable to expect the town manager to do HR. Other towns do. I don't get that. So there's a lot more money in here than just services. There's an expansion of the town office.
Yes.
And I still think it should be the townspeople deciding what services to get added, not, oh, by the way, I added this service, now you gotta suck it up and deal. I don't like that approach that has been generated over the past couple of years.
But the townspeople will be determining that at the town meeting.
Only if they have two different budgets. If the budget committee and the select board are exactly the same amount, the townspeople are just gonna look at the bottom line and say it's only a 3% increase.
So, Mr. Chair, I think that we should vote on the motion that's on the floor, because there's a lot of discussion here that it appears to me that that motion is not going to pass. So I think that we should be pursuing that motion, then go on further from there, because we're spinning our wheels right at the moment.
I just want to make sure everyone's had a chance to add to the discussion. Is there anyone else who would like to add their
I'll
thoughts?
make one general comment, which is I disagree that, we have a professional staff. They should be making changes based on what they think they need. Not every change needs to go to the town meeting. With that, I'm done. I'll even call the motion if need be.
Anybody else?
End my pain.
All right, there's a motion on the floor for the town to raise, it's been moved and seconded for the town to raise $1,143,060 for the total general government budget. All those in favor? All those opposed? So it fails 2-7. I'll accept another motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move that we, let's see, let's do this by. For general government, I move that we, can I do these by?
No, just give the total.
It'll be broken, I mean, you're welcome to, because it will be broken down in, if they do the articles the same as they did it last year, it will be broken down by administration, municipal buildings and grounds, assessing, information technology, planning and code enforcement. So
Okay.
if you want to break it down, you're welcome to. But we'll be voting on the motion will be on the total amount.
I think we should break it down, because it'll be shown that way.
Okay.
I guess. So I move that we approve $742,031 for administration, $32,700 for assessing,
I can't write that fast.
Oh, wait,
$32,700 for assessing,
wait.
Okay.
$98,600 for information technology, $192,044, 192,044 for planning and code, for a total general government of $1,065,375.
Second.
All right, I'm not going to read the whole breakdown. Did everyone have the figures?
Yes.
Okay. Everyone but me. So it's been moved by.
That's for
Okay,
you.
thank you. It's been moved by Neil and seconded by Alan that the town raise $1,065,375 for the total general government budget, which includes administration, assessing, IT, planning and code enforcement. Discussion.
If I may, Mel.
Yes, sir.
I believe on the original budget that was submitted to us, the fund balance that was recommended by the select board is annualized at $493,333. And the recommendation from their financial advisor was that fund balance numbers to be safe would, to be used for the next year would be between $350,000 and $600,000. So there's another close to $107,000 that is available there to be used in the fund balance. And if anybody is overly concerned about cutting positions or adjusting positions, that could be offset by increasing the amount of fund balance without jeopardizing the overall fund.
Are you,
Yes.
are you suggesting on the floor, or are you suggesting here?
No, what I'm saying, if you get into a debate as to budget committee versus select board, and there is additional fund balance funds available that they could utilize to offset some of those adjustments that we're recommending.
Jane?
So the only thing that I would have to say, I think that's a great idea, but I think also we're not firm on what the school's gonna come in at, so we need to have some fluff there.
That's not a good word to use.
Sorry.
I couldn't hear
It's
that.
almost like
Fluff.
scheming.
Wasn't the
No,
word
but
you
like
used.
to have some wiggle room there for if the school budget comes in higher than what we're anticipating, which I believe it probably will. That in itself is such a big part of the budget that I think we need to leave funds for that, just in case.
Well, okay.
But we'll have those numbers at that time.
No, we won't.
Well,
Or we won't, not in April.
No.
Okay, that's right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So the school budget numbers, I think, are fairly close, the ones that are in this current budget. They're based on what the school committee, I think, is looking at for real numbers. I think it might be under budget a little bit, but not much. It could go down. I don't think there's a problem myself, but, I just want to also say, I made two other changes to the budget after we're done with general government to public safety, which I think are sane reductions, but if we adopt what the general government number I used and a couple of small reductions in public safety, and we keep everything else the same as the select board as far as use of fund balance and so forth, the mill rate increase is 2.6%.
Yes.
And the select board and the town manager have the ability to move things where they need to move them
Yeah.
Within
their category.
department, yeah.
Right.
John?
Just to follow up on what Neil said, that in the select board discussion, they built in what the school is now saying, so the number that we have is 7.6%, which is more than the school board started with, actually, as a recommended budget increase. It's, I think, almost close to 1% higher than what they said. And I think also they raised the fluff, or whatever we want to call it, Ellen, to cover any misses on that one. So I think that's kind of built into the school board's budget.
What was the
We'll get
percent?
to school board
What was
later.
the percent you just quoted?
7.6.
I have on my report that it's now 9.7.
Yeah,
Because that's annual.
18 months.
That's, yeah.
Oh, it's 7.6
Yes, I guess the
It's
annual.
annualized.
annualized, okay, thank you. Other discussion? Awful quiet on one side of the room here. Any other discussion?
Well, I know through past meetings, one of the things that has been stated is the concern about the bottom line and what the bottom line percentage is. And Alan's point, you can get there by using more of our savings, or by Neil's point, you can get there by cutting spending. The concern I still have, because nobody's really answered the question, is what happens when
This-
our
the
fund
savings is
balance
gone.
dries up?
Well,
I know that some debt service is coming off, and I believe the assumption is being made that the town is gonna vote to just roll all that money back into the town budget. But I still personally have some concerns that we're masking very large growth of our town by using a savings account.
So I would just say, from my experience, I wouldn't, even in my own household, I wouldn't be digging into my savings all the time just to cover
A new service.
growth stuff, because I, not that I want, well, I do want, but, there's gotta be balance there, so.
And that's my concern. We're not dipping into savings for a one and done. We're dipping into savings for an increase in services that are gonna be forever.
I honestly don't believe that our fund balance is ever going to dry up, because we're at the point now where we're in an adjustment phase here now, and I believe there is a reasonable control over what is going on, but next time the budget committee meets, we will have even a better control and feel much better about how the spending is going and how the revenues are coming in. So I don't think the funding balance will ever dry up. It's just,
I'm hitting it.
as long as we don't overutilize it, and we're not overutilizing it. We're going based on what is being recommended to us from our financial advisor.
And I would say some of it there's a lot of things that are one and done in the use of the capital fund. I mean, bucket loaders, dump trucks.
Oh.
Remember, we're funding those.
We're talking general government
But we
right
don't know
now.
what those are, so I'm sorry.
Well, we do.
It's just good
We do.
knowledge, so.
I mean, it was there.
We're doing
Wait,
that.
wait,
But I get it if it is, what the use of capital is more than just general fund. We're not taking all 500-some thousand and putting it against the general fund. I mean, that's what the recommendation is, like, doing 590 or some hundred
That's the
thousand.
whole budget.
Yeah,
including
Mr.
school.
Yeah,
The,
all set? Yeah.
the use of fund balance happens to match what we've been putting into capital funds, capital reserves. It matched last year more or less, it's matching this year more or less. And what's gonna happen is when the fund's never gonna go away, because Mark's not gonna let it go away. Mark, you wanna talk?
No, this is a budget committee.
Oh. Mark's not gonna go away, the fund's never gonna go away, we can't let it go away.
I agree.
It's not possible, because if they won't let it, the town won't let it go away, I don't think, it'd be nuts. But when the general fund gets spent down to the point where we can't spend it down anymore, the money we're sending for capital reserves is gonna have to come out of taxes.
Right, so it's $500,000.
It's a lot of money, yeah, I agree, it's gonna happen sooner or later, yeah.
Yeah.
John?
but we did, at last year's town meeting, and the discussion was, we felt that, the town felt, because that's how they voted, that it was better to invest bank now, so that we didn't have 2 dump trucks, a loader, and a fire truck that we have to borrow on down the road. So taking it out now and paying it is, to me, a better use than getting into another debt situation.
Yeah.
I'm confused how we got to capital reserve. We're talking about general government and how that is growing and how we want to deal with that budget. It's the amount of money we're using from fund balance. Yes, part of it is investing in our capital reserve, but the other part of it is to make all of these department increases look much smaller.
Yeah, and that's definitely my concern. I have voiced it at our previous meetings that I look at that as sort of a, that's the emergency fund. If something comes up or we need something, now you have that fund balance, from my point of view, to keep using that fund balance to pay for increases in spending doesn't make sense. If there's revenue coming in that offsets the increase in spending, well, again, the way I run a household, that's what I just make decisions on spending based on what income is coming in. On the other side of the coin, we've hired a financial advisor who is looking further down the road than just year upon year, and is good at forecasting revenues, has experience in doing that. He's heard our concerns about spending down the fund balance to the point that we can't use it, and according to his strategy, based on the forecast of revenues, we won't do that. So even though I'm extremely conservative about using the fund balance, when he gives okay that you can go up to this amount of money to spend out of a fund balance, it gives me a little increased level of comfort. But the discussion on fund balance is going to come up later in the meeting, so I don't want to get too deep in that. Yep.
Based on body language, I'd like to request that Mark's allowed to speak.
Do I have a motion? You want to make that a motion?
I would like to make a motion that our accountant is allowed to speak.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Been moved and seconded that our accountant Mark be allowed to respond to some of the remarks that have just been made. All those in favor? All those opposed? Mark.
Question. Thank you for it. I just wanted to help inform the discussion so that everybody understands what everybody's arguments are. At least, I don't want there to be any misunderstanding about what we're talking about. So Alan's point is saying, look, my recommendation was I would be uncomfortable with the town using too much fund balance to offset taxes, because the long-term strategy is that right now the town's unassigned fund balance is what we would consider too large. Essentially, it's not the same as a personal savings account. It's your neighbor's savings account, right? And so essentially you're sitting on taxed money that you don't really want to sit on because people could be using it. So the idea is that you don't want to, you need to have an unassigned fund balance, and you need to slowly reduce that, right? Meaning you don't want a fiscal cliff where you've reduced it too fast, and now you come into another year where, yes, oh geez, well we still have to fund the debt service, or we still have to fund the capital transfers to the capital reserves, and now we don't have sufficient fund balance to do that. So what this long-term strategy is, look, yeah, you still can use some because you need to use some, right? You really should be planning to have a deficit, really eat into your fund balance. But you need to slow that down year after year so that by the time you get to an ideal fund balance, you've attenuated how much you've needed in your funding requirements. So Jill's argument is valid, right? Jill's argument is, look, by using fund balance, it looks like we're not spending as much because as far as the taxpayer is concerned, the amount that they're being raised is very minimal, right? It's a 3% increase as opposed to what she sees as overly large, in her opinion, increases in governmental expenditures. That's a valid point, and you should consider that. The idea of the long-term strategy is that because each successive year you're going to be budgeting to use less and less fund balance, then that will force you to really consider, okay, what additional services do we really need? Because the overall strategy is to say, well, we generally want to raise taxes, the tax levy, at a certain amount. And if we keep that steady, and every year we're using less and less, we're budgeting to use less and less fund balance, then the only other place that we would be able to adjust that is through looking at how much we're spending and holding that line, okay? So all of the arguments make sense. It's just you want to kind of combine them, or at least from my perspective, I'm trying to combine them into a long-term strategy, which is additionally why the capital reserves comes into question, because then the capital reserves is also trying to factor in a steady increase or an even amount that you're raising every year, right, to be put into capital reserve, that if that's even and the amount that you're levying is even, again, and the amount that you're using for fund balance or budgeting to use for fund balance shrinks, then the only other place in order to allow that to shrink slowly is to pay attention to what your expenditures are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if you use your word argument,
Yeah.
you're saying that our fund balance really is too high and should be spent down a little bit.
That's correct.
Well, what about the argument of what it's earning? If we don't spend it down and interest rates for current interest rates, we're making quite a bit of money
That's
on
correct.
that money. So that becomes revenue, and that revenue can be used to offset some of the expenses without hurting the fund balance at all. So you get away paying it down
Mhm.
because it's too large versus using the money that it earns
Mhm.
to offset expenses.
That's correct, and that's why we factor in interest income and investment income as part of the revenue. So, for example, the original budget included only, I think it was $100,000 for interest income, and then the idea, as a result of these conversations, the budget committee's conversations, was, yeah, that's probably a bit too conservative, right? And so we bumped it up to $100,000, and that does say, okay, well, we're getting more revenue in, which means that we're accounting for that. We're accounting for exactly what you're talking about, and still trying to figure out, okay, well, given all of the moving pieces, what's the long-term strategy here? So, did that answer your question?
Before we get,
Yeah.
we're going to have a discussion on fund balance
But
later
it
on this
affects
evening, so I just don't want to go too deep into this. And I saw her hand first. Go ahead.
I just want to ask a question, based on watching the select board meeting from the day after ours. I believe it was Heather, you were,
We wanted to keep the
sorry.
attention to the budget committee,
Okay.
unless you have a question for Mark.
Well, it will be for Mark.
Okay.
So Heather commented that she was concerned with the fund balance and they were going up and down and whatever. And I think what she had commented is, at the rate we're going, the fund balance will be gone in 5 years. So I guess I'm gonna ask Mark, how do you feel about that? Is that what you're planning, in a 5-year period, to be at that break-even point where we have to either raise or not increase?
No, no, that the intent is, my advice will be, every year, you budgeted to use X amount of fund balance, the actuals are this. So for example, last year, or the last fiscal year, we budgeted to use 668,000. We ended up only using, 400 and some odd thousand,
419.
right? So now, again, my recommendation to the select board was, okay, given the long-term strategy of slowly reducing the amount that you're budgeting to use, that you should be within 300 to 600,000 of budgeted use of fund balance for this budget. But even right now, the way that the budget is at 740,000. There are constant pulls for, okay, well, we have these funding requirements, or we adjusted these funding sources, or we don't want to raise taxes more than 2% or 3% or 5%, whatever, right? We don't want that tax levy to increase. Those are all those things that everyone is considering, and all the stakeholders are trying to make sure that they get what they think is most important agreed to, so that now even my recommendation of really, I'm not a big fan of it going above 600,000, but I recognize that, all right, well, 740,000 budgeted use of fund balance over 18 months, that's probably not going to be that bad, but I'm still concerned that might still be too quick of a reduction of the fund balance. So next year, when we're going through budget season for FY27, I will be taking a look at, okay, well, where's the fund balance? What did we budget to use? How much did we actually use? And now what's my recommendation going to be, with the thought of, okay, what's the long-term strategy, right?
Jill?
So at what point do we start looking at expenditures?
You,
mean,
no,
in fact,
I definitely agree with that.
That increase rate is so high for the past 2 years.
I definitely agree with your argument that it can make it can mask how much your government is growing, right? And that's what these conversations are for, is to say, okay, well, you know, department heads and town manager and select boards, have you really looked at how much you're growing and how much the services are? But you do need to take into account actual, you know, costs of things going up, right? So for example, I'm not a big fan of your suggested methodology of simply saying, well, what was the actual amount, and then let's raise that by 3.5%. And the only reason, not because I don't think that that's a reasonable, not that I don't think that that's unreasonable. I think that, okay, that generally makes sense, but it ignores some real new costs that aren't fully incorporated into this year's actuals, that will have to be incorporated into next year's actuals, that you can't multiply 3.5% just to simply arrive at it. And the prime example is having one full-time staff member that had no retirement, employer portion retirement expenditures or employer portion of health insurance expenditures, being replaced with, you know, working for the town for 9 months, being replaced with 2 full-time employees that have health insurance expenditures, right? And so now the actuals only show or only reflect 3 months of that real increase in cost that you're definitely going to have next year or for the next 18 months. That if you just take the actuals and you apply the 3% to 3.5%, you're kind of understating or underestimating what your 3% is. But I understand the methodology, which is why I don't say it's unreasonable. I just say I think it does need to be tweaked and needs to have a little bit of you know, specification to it, which is basically what the department heads and the town manager have done or attempted to do. And then, you know, your job is, you can either look at it as Neil has and said, well, you know, I'm not a big fan of, I'm not a big fan of hiring an HR person, right? And so we just want to pick and choose individual things that we're going to reduce. I'm not a big fan of that from a long-term perspective of how the budget should be presented. If you want to, you can. If you want to reduce it, you have to recognize you're reducing an entire department. So yeah, you can go to the townspeople and say, the town recommends 1.4 million, we recommend 1.2 million, and let the town vote on it. But you know, the town manager and the department heads are going to deliver the services that they think are necessary or needed. But yeah, I mean, the only way that you get to reducing that expenditure growth over time, the actual expenditure growth over time, is having discussions, right? And having your department head to really look at it. And then taking into real consideration my recommendations where I'm thinking about, I have a goal of where the fund balance should be and how we slowly eat into that to get it down to where we need to be, so that when we get it to where it needs to be, you're not budgeting to use any fund balance really ever, you know, year after year. You're really just budgeting for what your expenditures are. And that's when the unmasking, if you will, of, okay, well, what's the real cost increase from one year to the next? Does that make, yeah?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So just to restate what was been stated to the select board, we're not reducing anything. We're increasing general government by 6.4%, and administration, we use the administration's overspent actuals from last year to get there.
Are there any other questions for Mark before I turn this back to the budget committee? Oh, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, Neil, I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought it was not, we're not reducing anything. We're getting a 6.4% increase.
I just feel the fund balances there should be used in cases of, this seems to be an exceptional case going to 18 months, which we're not constantly doing. I also feel like as long as the fund balance is there, they're gonna keep adding stuff to it, because it's sort of like my kids. Oh, there's credit there, Mama, can I have it? Mama, can I have it? Mama, can I have it? Because they focus on that credit balance being there, and they add things, like you said, they don't ask first, they just add it. And I feel that this is a time though when we actually need it for the people for 18 months, because they are gonna be getting a 18-month bill that has to be paid in 12 months. Correct?
No,
No,
No?
they're gonna get, the town will be getting two bills. We
Yeah.
don't know exactly how it's gonna be divvied up, but the 18th month, the amount due over 18 months will be collected in two payments.
Okay.
Other,
So I guess
Discussion?
what I would just like to add to that is that I know the fund balance is there. And I get what Jill's saying, that if we're pulling from the fund balance, it does mask what we're adding. However, we're still adding, and those addings, all these next, say even maybe 5 years, while we're expending out the fund balance to a acceptable amount, we're still increasing year after year after year. And by the time we get to that point, we've eaten all those additions. So that's the norm.
Phyllis?
So are we expending at the same rate that we're gaining in the fund balance, I guess?
We're not gaining in fund balance, we're diminishing fund balance.
Right.
Well, okay, I probably asked that wrong then.
Right.
I'm looking at the percent, so are we evening
Right
out?
now, the amount of money that our town government is spending is more than the amount of money that the town is bringing in for revenue. And that deficit is a combination of using our fund balance and
Right.
increasing the taxpayers' tax bill.
No rate, no.
Okay.
And my concern is the revenue that the town makes is never going to be equal to or greater than what the town is spending, especially if we continue to increase by 10 to 15% every year.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor, it's been seconded, to raise $1,065,375 for the general government budget. All those in favor, please indicate so. And all those opposed? It is 7-2. Passes.
And I went for the same reasons, I worked for the other one.
okay. I'll make a note of that.
Please.
All right, the next article would be public safety. Public safety, according to the last year's article anyways, includes the fire department budget and animal control. The town has, the select board has recommended a total public safety budget of, make sure I'm looking at the same figures, public safety. $1,055,920, which would be 703, close to $704,000 annualized. Yes.
I would like to make a motion that we accept the select board's amount of $1,055,920.
Second.
All right.
I'm old and slow.
And
Jill, wait, well, hold on a second, and Mark, and it was 1,000,559. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry, Jill.
my reasoning for it is if I did my math correctly, some of the fire department's actual is what the town already approved last year by having the additional per diem shift. So once you factor that in, if my numbers are correct, public safety is only requesting a 5% increase in their budget, which, considering CPI and medical costs, I personally think is reasonable.
And discussion, John?
Yeah, I would like to add that a couple of things. One is that there's, has been, or will continue to be minimum wage increases, and that's a big chunk of the fire department's budget. And then the second thing is, I think the town, the staff took a look at it, but in the news frequently is OSHA has dumped all these requirements on fire departments, which are extremely expensive. You have to get rid of equipment faster, buy new stuff, buy more expensive stuff. And so over 18 months, I think it's been pretty hard to figure out what that all is gonna be. So I'm very supportive of this. So.
Other discussion?
So, my recommendation was gonna be to look at the, part-time staff wages, which was $458, $850. So what I did was, he was missing 3 months of nighttime per diems in his actuals last year, which I estimated to be $10,000 a month.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have the number someplace. It was closer to $30,000.
Yeah, that's what I was, $10,000 a month is $30,000.
Oh, my apologies, okay. I was thinking totals.
Go ahead.
So, he was approved for the whole year, and only spent 9 months of that money.
No, he only got approval for 9 months. He only
Okay,
increased his
well.
budget last year for the 9 months.
Okay. So he was, for this year, he'd need $30,000. I assumed $120,000 a year for nighttime per diem seemed like a lot to me. So I added $30,000 to his actuals, went with $262,000. I used actually his budget last year, which was $262, and I multiplied it times 1.1.
So the tricky part there is minimum wage went up 2.5%.
Yeah, well, I gave him a 10% increase over last year. So
Okay.
anyway, I came up with $432.66 for a budget for that number, which was a reduction of 25,000 or something like that.
26,184.
Which seemed reasonable to me.
Yes.
Neil, it sounds like you took in the potential increase in cost of living, and the question is how much is it gonna go up over 18 months versus a year? And also, there was a 10% last year increase in calls. So to just raise salary 10%, that covers calls, doesn't necessarily cover the minimum wage or other wages for that matter. So I'm not sure we wanna start cutting wages. And
Mark?
I would add to this discussion that your nighttime per diem, on an ambulance is probably gonna be a little bit more than minimum wage. I can't verify that, but I'm thinking if they're EMT, they're probably gonna make a little bit more. So you would wanna factor that in, and then I would also argue that that's probably one of the more important services that our town offers. Other than plowing the roads,
I wasn't using
I
that.
don't personally see a lot of services from the town. So I would argue that, I think the chief is pretty close on his budget here. If anything, I think we should keep it the way it is, but I would almost argue it should probably be a little bit more, because I don't know that he really budgeted enough for equipment for the same reasons that John stated.
Yep.
I didn't use minimum wage for that calculation.
Okay.
$120,000 a year for that's not minimum wage, just so you know, probably irrelevant.
Other discussion?
I just think that a lot of work has gone in by the staff on all of these. And we're sitting here trying to predict 18 months, and we've added the nighttime service, which I think the town is fully supportive of. You know, significantly reduced the call times and everything else, so. You're gonna have to pay good people. If you wanna keep the EMT coming here instead of Auburn or here, you know, whatever, the pay for those folks, I mean, to run to the fire, to me, you probably don't pay them enough, minimum wage or otherwise.
Anything? Hearing none, seeing none, it's been moved and seconded that the town raise $1,055,920 for the total public safety budget. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3. I abstain. That's not coming out right.
No, somebody's not.
Did I not get someone's vote?
Do the fours again.
Those in favor?
1, 2,
1, 2,
4,
3,
5.
5. Those opposed? 1, 2,
Neil?
no, I'm,
No.
and 3, okay, so it passes 5-3, 5-3 with 1 abstention. Okay. Moving on to public safety,
No, public works.
Public Works. Which, according to last year's article, we have not been given articles yet for this year, which is why I'm referring to last year's articles. The public safety article would include, Public Works article would include Public Works, solid waste, tags, and bulky waste day. It is the select board's recommendation that the town raise $2,102,500 for the total public works
I don't
budget.
think that's accurate. I think you're on the wrong handout.
Page 15.
It's 2,880,550
Right.
What?
Public Works.
on their last public works.
I have what,
I'm looking at the handout that I picked up today.
Right here. Public works, 2,880,500.
That's under the summary, and yet under the public
Page
works,
14.
page 14, I'm showing 2,102,000.
Public Works Department is a category within the Public Works category.
Yeah.
Includes the municipal buildings and solid waste.
Yeah.
Again,
You gotta
I'm-
Go to page
okay,
15,
I'm
go to
just-
page 15,
I'm going by last year's article.
and go to page 15.
it's deceiving.
As Mark said, we have 2 public works totals. There's your total public works right there.
Okay. All right, so the select board's recommendation, hold on 1 second. So as last year's article did not include municipal buildings
Right.
in the article, which was article number 8. I'm not sure where it shows up right offhand. Municipal buildings and grounds. It showed up under article 6, which was administration.
I think it's safe to assume they're changing it this year based on how they're presenting the budget to us.
So I've been accept articles in advance, like. All right, so, once again, the select board is recommending 2,880,500, 2,880,550 for the total public works budget. Do I have a motion, John?
I will make that motion that we recommend approval for $2,880,550.
Second.
Second, so John first and Phyllis second. Discussion.
I was wondering, may I speak? I was wondering about doing the bulky waste every other year. It's a lot of money. If we took 12,800 out of that, we get 20,000 for the bulky waste, and we just do it every other year. I know the argument is the mattresses, this and that, but one year we didn't have it, and they kind of threw a fit, but if we had the following year, I seen it kind of went down, but if we do it, the waste, the tonnage sheet here somewhere. But I think if we did it every other year, I mean, the people can take the stuff to Freeport, I do, and they can do it. So I was thinking that would be one place that we could actually cut, because I don't think it's quite fair that everybody has to pay this tax when there's not, not even half the town uses it. But every other year would clean it up, and we can also put it towards the, on the following year, like not only have one taken out for 18 months, and then you've got the other following year that if we had to do it in September, October, we could put it in the next budget.
John?
I think it's heavily used, and the year we didn't do it, there were lots of stuff along the road, at least along Stackpole Road. And the other thing is, not everybody uses all the things we have. I mean, I don't think we expect 100% participation on bulky trash day, but I think the town more than gets its money's worth on that, that endeavor. And the year we didn't do it, I think there was great regret that we didn't do it. And if you ask somebody to go to WEMAC or whatever it is, or Freeport, it's a lot more expensive than their share of that tax.
Any other discussion?
I'd be all for every other year.
You're what? I'm sorry.
I said I'd be all for every other year. It's not a service I use.
Yeah.
Other discussion? John?
But I think there are people who use it every other year, and I've got a barn that I can throw all kind, I've been spent 4 years
You
getting
need
crap
to
out of my
get a
barn.
dumpster.
Yeah, I looked into a dumpster at one time, it's a whole lot more expensive than driving to Public Works, so I think it is a service.
So I'm paying for you to empty your barn, really?
Any other
What
comments?
about the argument that you could put the other 6 months into the following budget in the following year? I mean, am I thinking something totally off there?
Oh, so you'd be having it at a different time frame?
Yeah.
Correct.
So we don't have to take it out.
John?
To me, we're just kicking that expense down the road, and it's probably gonna go up, so. I mean, springtime's when people clean out their barns and other things.
I have to admit that right now I'm a little concerned with what the 27-year budget's gonna be, with the conversation of possibly, paying for composting or Casella. There's a lot of chatter right now in regards to what we're going to do with trash management, that it might be a better argument for 2027 if we do see that there's an increase in waste management for other reasons. Especially since we did have a lot of, it was voted in pretty heavily to have it again by the townspeople that attended, so I realize that's only 0.03% of the town, but. And yes, I'm being sarcastic with that number, anybody who's listening to me.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, it's been moved and seconded that the town raise $2,880,550 for the total public works budget. All those in favor? All those opposed? So 6-3 passes. All right, that brings us to community service. Now, I'm not sure, we can't really go by community services of last year's article because there are several things in last year's article which we know are not included this year. All I'm seeing for community service currently is general assistance.
Yeah, that's all there is.
That's all there is.
Yeah. And that's,
I'm ready.
Yeah, go for it, John.
Wait a minute, one second.
Waiting for the chair.
You ready to make a motion, Jim?
I am.
Okay, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we recommend approval of $1,000 for, I guess it's other community services.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
I heard Alan first. It's been moved and seconded that we go along with the select board's recommendation of raising $1,000 for community services, which right now includes only general assistance, $1,000 for general assistance. Discussion.
If I remember correctly, it's mandated by the state, so it's not really a whole lot I think that we can discuss.
Was it mandated or they just raised the amount? Was
Well,
it-
they
I
mandated
think it's
the
one
rate.
in the same.
Yeah.
I guess I missed the mandate part, I just heard that they had raised it, so.
Oh, they raised it, and I don't
That's
think
the
we're
most-
allowed to decline.
In previous meeting, I know that there was, I don't know if it was a request or desire that another organization or two be added to this funding. Organizations that had been part of community services previously. Does that person want to address that? Or is that a moot point?
We were told it's not gonna be on in the warrant. So it is a moot point.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, there's a motion on the floor. It's been seconded to raise $1,000 to go along with the select board's recommendation. $1,000 for community services. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's a vote, 9-0. All right, so what I'm showing next is other financial uses. We have several capital reserve accounts that were voted on last year.
There's nothing to vote on this year.
There's nothing, so none of the capital reserve funds need our vote.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Concern I have, the budget committee is voting on articles which we don't have any articles that have even been presented to the select board,
Correct.
which is, like I said, concerning, and I don't understand why. These are one of the things that we have always asked for when we have had these in the past. We've asked for these things as articles, financial articles are being presented to the townspeople and need to be presented to the budget committee prior to that. So we're just shooting from my hip at times here, and I don't understand why it's happening.
I can answer that if that's a question for the select board.
It is, to me,
Yeah.
if you don't.
Is there a
mind.
motion?
Motion to have the select board, select chair respond to that question.
Motion seconded, all those in favor?
Yeah, it's a pretty simple answer. You all scheduled your meeting before we voted on the warrant language, which I told you we're gonna vote on tomorrow night's meeting. So if you schedule a meeting before we vote on them, there's not available for you to vote on. So if you were to have scheduled your meeting for Wednesday of this week, you would have them like I indicated in the last meeting. And so if
Question-
you're shooting yourself in the foot with scheduling a meeting before it's even made available, you can't really be upset at us for not making
Question
it
to
available.
Alan, you're a 30-year member of the, 30-plus maybe, of the budget committee. So in the past, nothing has changed in my 25 years, 4 years. We always had the articles. We had to have our budget recommendations to the select board before their final meeting.
Right.
So how would you respond then to the select board chair saying you're shooting yourself in the foot?
I guess, well, that may, I believe that is factual.
That
I guess
hurt?
one other question I would be asking is, without having a vote from the total select board, could you provide us with potential articles?
So we're voting on our articles tomorrow night, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the board on what they may or may not vote for in here. if I had to guess, I don't think we would move from any of our recommendations because they're based off of actual figures and not just percentages being added. So this is the cost of doing business next year, so I don't think we'll be changing it.
I just want to, that's not what I guess I asked it incorrectly. I want to make sure that as a budget committee, we're addressing articles that you're going to be presenting to the townspeople.
And we're voting on those tomorrow night.
So that means those articles are already printed and stated?
So you have our budget. Tomorrow is when we vote on our articles, so you can take a look at our publicly available
What I,
meeting
Joe, what I
agenda.
understand is, what are your articles? Are there articles that are
So-
typed and printed that you're gonna go through Article 1 to et cetera, or are you gonna go by department by department?
And if you look at our agenda packet that's available on the website for our meeting tomorrow night, which was made available last week, it has that information in there. And that's why at our last meeting, joint meeting, I said we would be voting on that on the second, our February 26th meeting, and then they would be available for you all after. Someone on this committee made the suggestion that you might meet after that to vote on those warrant articles, and then tonight, you're saying you wanted to vote on them tonight. So based off of the conversation we had, I was under the impression there would be another meeting from this committee after we vote on our warrant articles.
Permission from the committee to address the town manager? I make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Jerry, am I incorrect in saying when we review the schedule, because I believe we're using the same schedule as last year, the schedule that was given to me was that we needed to vote, you gave me a deadline of when this committee needed to have its recommendations forwarded to the select board. Have I done something incorrectly with the dates? Was I supposed to wait till March as opposed to scheduling this meeting on tonight?
Are you talking about the actual town meeting warrant article?
I think I'm being clear, but I know sometimes I can confuse
Because-
myself.
But I can be clear on this. We have never shared that town meeting warrant article during this budget process.
Understood, but you've given
It's
me
always
dates.
been budget sheets,
You've given me dates that on this date,
spreadsheets.
the select board would be making their recommendation and forwarding it to the budget committee. On this date, the select board needed the budget committee's final recommendations in order for them to make their final vote. Have I not followed the calendar that you presented to me
I haven't
correctly?
given you a calendar this year.
So you're saying you have made no statement to me that said, we need the budget committee's recommendations by a certain date in order for the process to continue, in order for you to have to get the select board's recommendations, in order for this to go to the printer in time,
This year?
whether this year and last year. I'll put them both together because we've
Well,
had this
last year,
discussion
yes,
twice.
this year, no.
You never gave me those dates.
No.
And I vocalized at last meeting, we were voting on that at our February 26th meeting.
Well, it's too
And
bad.
then
So
you said-
that just means from this point on, I have to do everything in writing, that I can't communicate to this group something that was said to me, person to person. Go ahead.
Are you suggesting that the select board's having a meeting tomorrow night and you really didn't give a damn about what was coming from the budget committee?
No, at our last meeting, I made very clear to you all that we would be setting our warrant language on the 26th of February, and then it would be made available. The chairman of your board then said, well, we might have to have another meeting after that. Totally fine, you set your own meetings. And if you want to know if we care about what you all are saying, part of the reason we're in this situation is we adjusted our budget halfway through from your really positive feedback on revenues and things like that. So we certainly care about what this board and committee says, but when we present a budget that is the cost of doing business based off of actual expectations of costs, if this committee comes in and says, I want to cut that, it's not the real cost of doing business. And so we do care, but if you're saying we want you to spend $100 on something that costs $120, we can't change that. So we do
Joe?
care.
You stated that the articles that you will be voting on is in your agenda for tomorrow
It's in
night.
the agenda packet, correct?
Do you mind coming
They
over
don't-
here and
yeah.
showing
I tried to bring it up.
Because I don't see it in the agenda packet. So do you mind coming over and
it's a
clicking on
budget.
it?
There's a budget, but there's no article.
There's no articles, it's just a copy of this budget.
Well, not the warrant article language, no, that's not there.
I misspoke on the warrant
Okay,
article language.
so could you please
But the
assist
budget articles
us?
are there.
The budget articles are there.
And I know you don't have a crystal ball, but you're gonna have some categories that you're creating warrant articles on. Do you plan on creating warrant articles on capital reserve?
Yes.
Yeah, I said that,
Okay.
at this last meeting with this committee, I said we were gonna follow the same protocol for articles as last year.
Okay.
Now, we have moved municipal buildings into their department, so that's the slight change that you're seeing here.
Okay,
But the intent is to do it the same as last year.
okay,
And I know that people have been on the board for 20, 30 years. I haven't been in this position. No one in the seat behind me has been in this position for 20, 30 years. I'm sure there's been changes in that timeline on how it's been presented, so we're just going
Jerry?
with what we did last year.
when does this need to go to the printers?
This needs to go to the printers, I need to have everything ready by March 15th.
Okay, and Joe, do you have another select board meeting?
We moved our meeting to
between
March 4th.
tomorrow
Yep.
and March 15th?
We moved our meeting to March 4th to give the printer ample time. So we'll have a meeting tomorrow, and then we'll have a meeting a week from tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
And last year, there was an Article 19
On the fund balance sheet.
regarding the fund balance use. Do you anticipate that there will be a similar article this year?
I don't have that article in front of me, so I'm not sure.
I have the
If you
Flash's
can hand
book.
it
It
over.
will be, yes.
Yeah.
So we would need to make a vote on that. If they got-
But that's in your budget.
all in the
It's all
budget
in your
sheet.
budget.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And last
So-
year, there was an Article 18 to see if the town would vote to reduce the amounts authorized to be raised in taxes. Will that be an article by itself?
Yes.
Okay, because last year it states that we recommended approval, and this board did not make a vote on that last year. So,
that's
We-
last
I
year.
need to-
We gotta pay attention.
I know, I need to know whether we have to have vote on it this year.
So why don't we change up our discussion a little bit? We've gotten information from them stating that after their vote tomorrow, there will be warrant articles. So if the budget committee would
Budget
like
articles, sorry, point of clarification. The warrant articles for the budget, yes.
Thank you. Okay. So there will be warrant articles created tomorrow. So do we want to plan a meeting between tomorrow and March 4th? And therefore, we can be working on, or voting on the budget warrant articles.
I would say yes,
I am unavailable.
after tonight.
Does that make tonight's vote moot?
Not
No.
necessarily, but it
No.
would
Just
allow us to
revisit it.
clarify the additional votes. I mean, we know for sure that there's gonna be a fund balance vote, so if Jan's not available, we could do a vote now and just re-solidify our vote once we have the actual warrant articles.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm not quite clear, though. What are we gonna know after tomorrow? If there's not gonna be an Article 3, 4, 5, 6 that we're gonna go right down the line and,
That's from what they told us we will have after tomorrow.
that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing,
I think
we're
you might
gonna
wanna-
hear what we've been hearing
No.
by departments.
No, they will have the budget warrant articles after tomorrow's meeting,
But for the budget, including the capital reserve and the fund balance.
yes.
Should be.
Everything that's in this packet, which capital reserve.
So
and
tomorrow,
fund balance
so
uses.
tomorrow night, they will be assigning each of these department budgets to an article number, to an article.
Yes.
And she's correct? Okay. I'm sorry, Neil? I interrupted.
This last week.
Well, I'm not sure how many articles we get that we haven't already voted on. Article 18, that we agree to that anyway. I don't see why we wouldn't. And Article 19 is the transfer of use of fund balance. We can vote on that.
Yeah, because actually, last year, we had recommended a different amount. What about the reserve accounts? That's how this whole conversation
It's
started.
in here. I mean, how was it last year?
But do we vote or do we not vote?
We will need to vote.
John?
May I ask the question, is the concern if you look at the articles in the book, and we have the dollar amounts, and we're voting on those this evening. So if the concern or the issue is, for instance, Article 6, to see if the town, this is last year, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $689,991 for general government, that's what we don't know, is that sentence right there, right? Because we haven't got, so if we want to vote on that as a board, and then add to it whatever we agree to this evening, and if they're gonna get it to, if that's what we want to vote on, are those verbiage, then we probably need to have another meeting to vote on that verbiage.
We, as a budget committee, we have a responsibility to respond to any article that has a financial impact.
I'm okay with it, I'm just saying,
What I'm saying is, I'm not looking at the dollar amount, whatever the verbiage is on these articles, and there is a financial amount associated with it, we need to be voting on it.
yes,
And I don't have that in front of me.
I agree. So the question is, if we want to vote on that, which the answer seems to be yes, then we need to schedule another meeting
I agree.
after we get the verbiage from the select board.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, those that have been doing this when we have gotten the warrant articles. If I remember correctly, we voted on budget amounts, or we gave recommendations to the select board on budget amounts. And then the warrant articles were generated to have the select board amount and the budget committee amount. And that's what we voted on, because it would be either the same or it'd be different.
Right.
So we can still utilize Jane this evening and go through capital reserves, go through fund balance.
Yes.
She just won't be here for the final approval of warrant articles.
Well, we haven't set a date, but you're not here all week, it's next week.
After tonight.
We're on a public thing, I wanna discuss.
Yeah, no, I understand, yeah, you're not available, you're just saying you're not
You're just
available.
not
next week.
available,
Yeah.
right.
We don't have to get into detail.
The March, what the hell, whatever next Wednesday is, there's 3 of us who will not be available for planning board. We will be at the planning board, March 5th.
Well, we have to have it done before the 4th, so you're fine.
I'm good.
What's the availability of people on Wednesday of this week?
Not available.
Okay, that's true. Thursday.
I'm available Thursday. Anybody else available Thursday?
On the
Fire
27th?
departments are occupied.
Prior to Thursday.
Yeah, we lose the room on Thursdays.
It doesn't need to be recorded,
There's
so we
nothing
could give it to your
scheduled for this
representer.
Thursday. On the calendar, there's nothing for the fire department scheduled for the,
Oh, is it the off week for meetings?
well, the fire,
I thought it was the fire
the
training.
fire
instead of
training
the
was
meeting.
moved up to last.
Oh,
this-
so if it's been moved, then I don't think that this space might be available then.
I don't know if someone wants to check with the fire chief before. How's Thursday sound to anybody else?
What day?
This Thursday.
This Thursday,
Thursday?
27th.
27th, yeah.
I can do it Thursday.
I was just gonna say, I don't know if there's any public notice required for this, but if we don't close the meeting today, we just continue it, we don't have to worry about that. So we don't have to worry about, been there, done that, we're gonna do that next week.
All right, so we'll put that on pause till we know that this room would be available on the 27th. Do we want to go, so, thank you, gentlemen. So we left off, the discussion was whether or not we need to vote on capital reserve accounts. And the answer was
Yes.
yes. We just, do we know, do we have amounts that we know?
Yes, it's on page 19.
Page 19. I don't know.
I have page 18.
Townwide tab, town.
It's the last page of the PDF that they emailed to us for this meeting.
Second last page.
Oh, shoot, I don't have that. Mine only goes up to page 18.
You have
They
it on
changed
page
it in the
18.
recent
So this is for
You're
the
right,
11th?
and then it was 19.
Oh, are you sure?
With the added
Neil, I
page.
checked it this
It's just,
Superfluous? Okay. All right.
Is that page they didn't want you to know about?
And
So-
we only need to vote on whether there's transfers in or out, correct? Can you turn that off?
Yeah, but this,
I can't turn it off.
this should be
Um,
on the budget.
So my assumption is we only need to vote on lines if money is either transferred in or transferred out.
And we've already voted on the telecommunication reserve. We did that last week.
Okay,
We voted nothing, no transfer.
well, they're showing no transfer anyways.
There.
Yep,
When would they have done that?
I don't know, it's zero now.
Just real quick point of information, we just heard from Chief, Thursdays is not available for meetings here.
It's not.
Yeah.
Okay, but we don't need to have the meeting here.
Can we just?
Yeah, it has to be taped. No, I guess it doesn't, does
It
it?
doesn't need, our meetings don't need to be taped.
Do we know if Eureka is available?
Why don't they, you're elected, why don't they need to be taped?
Because we're not a decision-making body.
Right,
And what are you doing here?
We're making recommendations.
Could ask myself.
They just have to, we can take minutes.
right,
They don't have, none of, our meetings don't have to be there.
we can just take
Same
minutes.
standard as us, but.
We don't need
just
minutes.
So now we need to know if, you don't remember taking a vote last week? On telecommunication?
We had a discussion about it, but as the select board stated, they had not received any votes from us yet, so they
We took a
don't
vote.
believe, they don't believe they've received any votes from us, so we
We
need
took
to
a
vote
When did
on
I
it
state that?
again.
We took a vote.
So,
The vote
We didn't
was
receive any votes from you.
I could take a vote.
7-2.
so.
You made the motion.
No,
I
I'm
seconded.
just saying that I don't believe the select board processed that because they stated when they were going over the budget that they hadn't received any recommendations from the budget committee. And according to their handout, they're not doing anything with telecommunications reserve. So, there is.
So when did, if you don't mind,
So
Joe,
I-
when did that get changed? Because you haven't had a meeting since then.
So, yeah,
Mark
we
might have
watched,
the answer.
we watched your meeting.
What's your question, Mark?
Yeah, we watched your meeting because we were all here and we saw that you voted against that, but no one sent us an official email or anything like that
Right.
saying, here's our position statement, but we know where you stand on it. So I never said we didn't get your information.
Why
just-
wouldn't it reflect it on the most recent budget sheets?
Because we haven't written the warrant language articles yet, and we haven't changed our recommendation, even though we have heard your recommendation.
Okay. So we have to, if we're gonna do votes this evening, it has to be based on what is being presented to us by the select board. And the select board is not presenting any transfer.
Transfer on the fund.
They're not recommending, based on the budget they gave us, they're not recommending any transfers out of the telecommunications reserve.
So
Transfers in
the
and
vote
out
that
is
they,
zero.
the vote that they took in an official select board meeting, which was to transfer 30,000 or something, what happened to that vote? That was a vote, it was an official vote.
I don't know, we did not receive it.
So, that's interesting, because they're saying that they haven't received numbers from us, and now we're saying, well, we didn't receive numbers from them, but this is kind of a not.
We voted to make the recommendation for the transfer, and you all voted against that recommendation. We haven't changed our mind, you haven't changed your mind, and that's where it stands. So, it's fine, we can have difference of opinion on that transfer amount. We're planning on asking the community for that transfer, and it will say, budget committee recommends against it, the select board recommends for the transfer. And then we can have a lively
Can I have a
debate
motion
on the
to
town
recognize
floor.
Mark, our accountant, please?
I move.
Second, all in favor? Thank you, Mark.
I just want to, I think you guys are talking about a couple of different things that are cross communication. If I remember the conversation from the budget committees last week or 2 weeks ago, it was about transferring amounts for the baseball, right? The-
No, we're
Yeah, this is
talking
something
about-
different.
It's something different, is it, we asked to transfer from telecommunication into,
Emergency.
emergency reserve.
Right.
Oh,
To bring that balance up to $70,000, and that's something that.
oh, I see.
we were-
That has not been voted on.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I was unaware of that.
So
Every
it
wires
sounds
are
like-
crossed about our crossed wires.
You're
So
gonna
we
vote on
act,
that.
in looking at this is actually, page 18, Mark, has
Yeah.
nothing to do with the 2026 budget, does it?
No, page 18, the last page that says
Alright.
fund balances, those aren't any votes. What
So-
what the committee is voting on what the select board is voting on for the budget for transfers out is on the townwide page that says transfers out.
It's page.
Those are transfers out. Now, the
17?
select board may also be voting on something to transfer from the telecommunications reserve to another reserve. That has nothing to do with the fund, with the budget. That's just that has no effect
Okay.
So
on.
it's a dollar amount, so we're supposed to be voting on it.
It doesn't have a fiscal amount, it's a transfer from one reserve account to a different reserve account, so it doesn't raise or appropriate.
Right, there's no disbursements of town funds, it's simply a reclassification.
But you're moving it so that you can use it for a different manner.
Right, and that's what we're asking for at the town meeting, but it doesn't raise or appropriate, it just transfers.
So the transfers that in the budget are the total transfers out there,
Okay,
which
can
in
you,
the notes is a combination of 3 different transfers.
okay, so why is the transfer into Public Works Capital Reserve requiring, or listed here and requiring our vote, but another transfer isn't?
Because for the budget, it's about what is being raised and appropriated from taxes, right? What is being raised and appropriated. So in order to, the transfers out to go to the fire department reserve, the public works reserve, and the municipal buildings reserve, which those are the 3 capital project reserves that the capital plan uses. Those need to actually be raised in taxes from people so that we can take it and put it into those reserves. There are existing reserves, right, the telecommunications reserve, the recreation reserve, the emergency reserve. Those have existing balances. Those have already been raised and appropriated to those reserves, and now the select board apparently is gonna be voting on whether or not there's gonna be a warrant article to move an amount from the telecommunications reserve to some other reserve, right? Yeah, so that is not money that is being raised in taxes, that's existing money. It's like moving it from one savings bank account to another savings bank account, that's all it is.
With different times.
And that's correct, so that's
With
correct.
existing funds, yes.
Both of them have different reasons for use, but that's what the townspeople are approving.
Okay.
And our
Alright.
discussion last time was about the money building up in the telecommunication account and not being utilized, and the select board feeling like it would better serve if it was in a emergency reserve. I think that the confusion here is the word transfer out versus transfer from one account to the other.
Right.
And Mark has to remind us certain words have accounting meanings
So
that we don't
then,
always think
if we're
about.
gonna vote on capital reserves, then that is page 17, line 998500.
So the select board is recommending the transfer of $307,500 for the Public Works
Yep,
Reserve.
and $270,000 for fire department, $15,000 to buildings, $6,000 to grants, for a total of $598,500.
John?
My question would be, Mr. Chairman, is, last year, excuse me, last year we voted on fire, public works, municipal, Eureka, anyway, we voted on a bunch of them as separate articles.
Right.
Is it the intent of the select board to make that one article at 595, or should we vote on whatever number's left there, those 4 or 5?
We'll know in 28 hours.
Or meeting
Do we
will
want
start
our-
then.
Can we move it both ways, or whether it's one or
Yeah,
all?
I mean, I think perhaps there should be conversation if if people in our committee feel each amount should be a little different, then we can break it down, but if we don't, and it's just the total amount, then we can vote on that.
I can wait till tomorrow. This
I
is
don't
good.
think I can wait till tomorrow, damn it.
So. Let's move and vote on them individually, and then it can be combined as a
It's
whole.
only one article.
Yeah.
Good.
Right, so
All right, so we'll start with Public Works. Do I hear a motion?
I do. I move that we recommend approval of a transfer out of $307,500 for public works.
I'll second.
John, Joe. And this is Public Works. Public Works Reserve.
John, what
Can you turn off your mic,
Page
please,
17.
Joe?
I'm sorry. The numbers I'm reading off of are on page 17 of the
Highlighted area.
You gotta try
the
again,
budget.
Joe.
18 if you took it off the website today.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded that the Budget Committee approve the Select Board's recommendation of transferring $307,500 to the Public Works Reserve account. Discussion.
Okay, I'm just forcing this.
Discussion, yes, sir.
Yeah, well, not to throw a ratchet in there, we're talking about transferring out, and we don't know this till tomorrow, but, or Thursday. But the article sent to see if they will raise and appropriate that money rather than transfer, transfer it out. So we can vote on the actual verbiage on Thursday if we're happy with the 307,500.
Yeah.
That screw things up.
I think that's what we have to worry about today is the
amount.
The dollar amount
And
versus
then
the.
Thursday, we'll
verbiage.
worry about the article wording.
Wait a minute.
Because we'll have the
Is
verbiage,
it,
right?
are we choosing between whether to raise this amount or to transfer this amount? Is that what we're waiting for
When
on the
you say
article?
raise and appropriate, then it means that we're utilizing the money we have, and what money we don't have, we raise it. That's why all of the articles now say raise and appropriate.
The $307,500 that we are voting to transfer to Public Works account. Are we raising that money or are we transferring that money?
We're doing a little bit of both. The
Well,
answer is yes.
Yeah, but
What the article said last year was vote to raise and appropriate the amount.
Correct.
And then there's another article that says to see if the town will authorize the select board to appropriate from the general fund's existing fund balance to reduce the amounts to be raised in Articles 6 through 17.
Right.
So basically, we say we want to raise and appropriate, and then on Article 19 that you mentioned, we say, but take it out of the general fund.
okay.
So it's a little bit of both.
So the language we need to use right now is to raise and appropriate.
Correct.
All right, so that's what the current motion is, I believe. Is that
That
correct?
is what it is.
All right, any further discussion?
Yes, I
Yes.
wanna know, what are we buying? I heard a front end loader.
Not buying anything.
We're not buying anything.
This is just transferring
Just
it into the
transfer-
long-term capital.
Correct.
Which I would love to see the 10-year rolling thing, but
I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you.
should have been coming from them.
So,
I don't know what John just said, excuse me.
I
But
say yes.
what, we're raising and appropriating money for the reserve fund. That's all we're doing.
So we're not transferring funds to spend the funds
Well,
out of the reserve.
Raise, appropriate, and transfer.
once
Okay, but that's
it's,
confusing.
once it's in,
Is that right, Mark?
once it's in their capital reserve fund, then the select board has the ability to spend that money when the department head comes to them and says, it's time to spend that money.
Okay, I totally get that.
Okay?
So, in one point in the budget, we're spending money to buy whatever we need coming out of the capital reserve, which we have been putting into all along to try to make it an even flow, so it's not like, oh my God, we have to spend this much money. I get that. I just think we should be aware of this 307, we're adding to the capital reserve in order to keep this 10-year plan going. I want to know what's on the 10-year plan, and is it being updated every year? Because nobody seems to bring that up.
Because we know. Some of us know.
Well, I don't know. I'd
Well,
like to
I'll
know.
inform you when the meeting's over.
Well, I've been asking to be informed for the whole time.
Sorry.
But Neil's got it. But I think that, you know, we don't do the CIP anymore. So I think the question is, before us is, do we want to raise and whatever it is, appropriate? And then we'll get to another article that says, we're gonna take it out of reserves instead of raising, you know, whatever.
Right.
Okay, so I am not a budget committee member. I am Jane Rice, that pain in the rear end person at the town meeting.
I'll go with
Okay? I want to know what is being bought with my tax dollars?
Okay. We'll have that answer on Thursday.
Oh, my
Because
goodness
Neil,
gracious.
unless,
Nothing's
can you
being
bring it
bought
up
with
on
it.
your computer right now, Neil?
Nothing's being bought with it.
Well,
Can you
I
bring
would
it
just
up on your
caution,
computer
we
right
have a program, but it's not necessarily gonna be spec.
Right.
Well,
This
if we have a
was the-
program.
Yeah, we have a-
Do you have it on your computer?
Yeah, that's not the time to do it now, I don't think.
yes.
No, I
Well, I
won't.
think it's
Okay,
affecting James.
so we
though.
have a 10-year rolling plan from 3 different departments.
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Yes.
Nowadays, okay, that's fine. So right
Actually,
now,
4.
we are just trying to add to that. Okay, so as a taxpayer, I think it's my right to know how we came up with that number.
Our illustrious accountant came up with that number,
No,
so.
no,
It's not
no,
an
no.
answer.
This is a discussion for, not now, this is a long
But
time.
how do we vote on that if we don't have that
We
information?
we do have the information. We do have it.
And we're not,
Exactly.
Just vote against, if you're uncomfortable with the
Right.
motion, vote against it.
But I mean, I wanna be an educated voter.
But if you don't have the information you need to be confident in your vote, then vote against it.
I know, but that's kinda counterintuitive, like.
You still
why
have, this,
can't
all
we
this
just
is
have
is
the info?
recommendations, you have a town meeting to make your final decision. And if you want to influence other people's decision, you'll do it at town meeting. So this is, you know, we often use the word dress rehearsal. This is a chance for a small group of us and anyone who's watching on TV to gather information so that they go to the town meeting as an educated voter. So you have between now and then to get whatever information you need. If right now you are uncomfortable making the vote, then vote against the motion, is my recommendation,
I'm not-
is my suggestion to you.
I find it very frustrating that I've asked for 2 meetings prior to have this information. I don't know what the big deal is to have
So
that.
stated, your other course of venue would have been as a individual taxpayer to go and either to the town office and request the information, or to ask for time with the select board, to get yourself on a meeting agenda to get that information and have a discussion with them.
I just find that that's going above and beyond on my part. That should
So
be
stated and
public
understood.
knowledge.
John?
Okay.
I was just gonna say, I think it's time to move on.
Yep.
Uh,
Was there any other discussion regarding the motion on the floor?
I have one question
Yes, sir.
for Mark. Mark, the wording in this, from last year's warrant article, to see if the town will vote, raise and appropriate $180,000 for fire department capital reserve. That is putting money in capital reserve fund, correct?
That's correct. That's not,
There's no other article required to put money in the capital reserve fund.
no. Well, there's individual ones, right? One for the fire department capital reserve, one for the municipal buildings capital reserve, one for the.
Right.
Yes.
So that was misstated, I believe. There's only, when we vote for this, we're putting money in the capital reserve fund.
That's correct. It's
Yeah,
not
that's what I said, I
being
thought.
Correct.
That's all.
I understand that,
Right.
but we
It's not
should
one.
still
So it's not raise and
understand
appropriate, it's just raise?
why
No,
we're
it's,
putting
Raise
it
and
in.
appropriate.
the wording is correct, but it's not to spend it this year, it's just to
Raise
it
and
in
appropriate. Any other discussion? Seeing none, the motion, it's been motioned and seconded that the town raise and appropriate $307,500 for the Public Works Capital Reserve account. All those in favor? All those opposed? So 7-2. What, 6-3? Who's the third? Oh, okay, sorry. 6-3.
Mr.
1 second, please. Thank you. Yes, sir.
If we're ready, I'll make a motion on the fire department, or public safety, whichever one it is.
Okay,
Again, off of page 17 of the whatever, Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $270,000 for the fire department capital reserve.
Is there a second? John and Phyllis. It's been moved and seconded that we raise and appropriate $270,000 for the fire department capital reserve. Any discussion?
Do we have any information?
No.
It's the same thing. The same CIP has.
There's a new ambulance in the future.
At least that creates revenue. I'm not against not doing this, it's just the lack of transparency just pisses me off, big time.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, it's been moved and seconded that the town raise and appropriate $270,000 for the it's actually called Fire Rescue Capital Reserve. All those in favor? All those opposed?
And the fire department, why are you,
Were you opposed or in favor?
why are you voting?
Opposed, so 6-3.
Did you abstain? No.
No, I voted.
Oh.
So 6-3 again. And if somebody want to make a motion regarding municipal
Okay,
buildings?
Jill's dying to make it.
No, I was just gonna tease you and say you gotta let somebody else do it once in a
Okay,
while.
I'll sit here quietly.
Don't do it, your hand was up.
Yeah, go for it, John.
I
I'm
was
just
up
teasing.
first. All right. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to see if the town will vote to raise an approximately $15,000 for the municipal buildings capital reserve.
And did you mean to say appropriate, not
Yeah.
approximately?
Yeah.
I will rephrase it, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $15,000 for the municipal buildings capital reserve. Thank you, ma'am.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that the town raise and appropriate $15,000 for the municipal buildings capital reserve account. Discussion?
I'm assuming no information, right? Just want it noted.
Seeing none, it's been moved and seconded that the town raise and appropriate $15,000 for the municipal buildings capital reserve account. All those in favor? All those opposed? No, this one's getting closer, 5-4.
For 15,000, big, 52,000.
Because people could relate to it, so I don't know. It's principle.
And one more to go.
I'll make a
Holy
motion
smoke.
to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $6,000 for the grants reserve account.
So that's different what's on the report here, right?
I have 6,000.
6,000.
I got
I got
3,152.
3152.
I got 6,000.
I have 6,000.
Wait, that's 2,400.
On the latest sheets, that,
The latest one it is, 3,152, you're right.
Oh,
The intent of that is to top up the grants matching reserve back up to $30,000.
what's the date?
you wanna do your motion again?
No, because I don't have that number, so I'll just withdraw my motion. And somebody who has the number in front of them, because I don't have that paperwork.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we
It is
raise and appropriate
$3,152.
$3,152 for grants reserve. Second.
212?
All right, it has been moved and seconded that the town raise and appropriate $3,152 for the grants match capital reserve. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. It's been moved and seconded that the town raise and appropriate $3,152 for the matching grants capital reserve. All those in favor? All those opposed? 8-1. All
Is
right,
that where the total then of the 595,652 comes from? Because it is lower than the other paperwork. It's probably because the grants.
yeah, we have a total of 595,652 for the
So
total.
we should probably vote on that as well, because we don't know how the select board is gonna present it. So, I make a motion that we raise and appropriate a total of $595,652 to cover all of the capital reserve accounts.
Second.
Who's the second?
John?
John, okay, so that was Jill, Charles, John. It's been moved and seconded that the town raise and appropriate a total amount of $595,650, which includes the Public Works Capital Reserve, the Fire and Rescue Capital Reserve, Municipal Buildings Capital Reserve, and Matching Grants Fund Capital Reserve. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. It's been moved and seconded that the town raise and appropriate $595,652 as the total amount for our transfers into our all previous mentioned capital reserve accounts. All those in favor? All those opposed? 7 to 2. All right. So now we got, supposedly we voted, or at least it was said that we approved Article 18. Article 18 was, I don't think we have a dollar amount though, so I'm not sure how we're gonna vote on it.
We do have a dollar amount.
We do, okay. To see if the town will vote to reduce the amounts authorized to be raised in taxes, I can't quote the articles, by
You ready for the number?
hold on a second.
$3,528,370. Check that it's right on this paperwork too.
That's not right.
Hold on.
That's not the number
No,
I'm looking at.
yeah, you're right. Let me try again.
3651.
$3,651,770.
And that's off of what page?
That's off of page 1, total funding sources.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded that the Budget Committee recommends that the town votes to reduce the amount authorized to be raised in spending articles by $3,651,770 based on estimates for non-tax municipal revenues. Discussion.
Seeing none, all in favor? You said we were co-chairs.
That's fine. All those in favor? All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 4 passes.
How could-
What?
I'm just curious why you don't want to use the money that we get.
Build a fund balance.
Suppose.
My head is somewhere else right now.
Okay.
All right, so it was.
To be honest. Where are you then?
Okay, and then there was last year's Article 19 to see if the town will authorize the select board to appropriate up to, and I believe this figure we know to be $740,000 from the general fund's existing fund balance to reduce the amounts authorized to be raised in the spending articles. Is there a motion?
Mr.
I
Chairman,
think there's gonna be discussion before there's any motions.
I move we authorize $740,000 use of fund balance.
Second,
There you go.
if somebody will tell me where that's coming from.
The fund balance.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded
I see it.
that we authorize, that our recommendation is that the town authorizes the select board to appropriate up to $740,000 from the general fund's existing fund balance to reduce the amounts authorized to be raised in the spending articles. Discussion.
This,
Chewy beatbox, I got.
Go ahead.
if we do that, does anybody know where the final figure is gonna come out, like the mill rate or the percentage or anything?
2.9%.
Be 2.9%? Yeah, but what's the, so you're gonna add 2.9% to the 21.75? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
Right, it's gonna, the mill rate would be about 2238.
Any further discussion? Yes, John?
It may not matter at this point, but have we voted on debt service and assessments and the school and county tax? Did we vote on that last time?
Do we really have to? Because
Well, yes, I think.
I think we have to vote on debt service, but not school and county.
School's not in the budget.
School's not in that.
Oh, no, to find it.
It's on the town warrant.
And we don't get a vote on county. And the school
Okay.
vote occurs.
So just
summer.
debt service.
Yeah.
All right, that'll be Article 10, I'll come back to that. So we're still on the fund balance, any further discussion on that? It's,
I'll ask one question. Any money that is not spent goes back on the fund balance, correct?
Correct.
it has been moved and seconded that we recommend the town authorize the select board to appropriate up to $740,000 from the general fund's existing fund balance to reduce the amounts authorized to raise from spending taxes. All those in favor? All those opposed?
I'm thinking. It wasn't where I wanted to be, but, oh well,
Yeah, are you
Against it, then.
yay, nay, or
Yeah.
abstain?
I'll oppose.
So 8-1. All right, and then we have debt service, which was last year's Article 10, which was to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, and then I'll need a number for debt service.
805,318.
8. Where is it?
I will make a motion.
Wait a minute, I'm trying to
Page
find
9.
It's on page 17. Page 17.
I have it on
Page 9,
9.
debt service, 805,318.
Because it's in multiple places.
Service, and this was use of fund balance. Somebody has a motion, John?
I will make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we recommend approval for total debt service of $805,318.
Is there a second?
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded that the budget committee recommend the town vote, raise and appropriate $805,318 for debt service. Discussion?
I think we should pay our bills.
Good choice.
Seeing none, it's been moved and seconded that the budget committee recommend the town raise and appropriate $805,318 for debt service. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's a vote. That's all that I can see. We have we determined whether or not the Eureka Center is available for Thursday?
It is, I did not see anything on the town calendar. This Thursday.
So we're going to just, I'll need a motion to, let's see, to,
Continue.
John.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we continue this meeting till 6:30 PM on Thursday, the 27th,
Okay.
in the year of our Lord 2020.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
So are we gonna have hard copies of the results of the select board meeting?
Yes,
That's what we said, we'll have hard
Jerry
copies up
said we
there.
would, or Joe said we would. We would have warrant articles in our hands.
Signed blood.
Motion to, okay, that's the approved, to continue, motion to continue the meeting on Thursday, February 27th, 6:30 at the Eureka Community Center. All those in favor? All those opposed? And now I need a motion to adjourn.
No.
Oh, no,
We need a
yeah.
motion to continue.
Motion to continue, we already got that.
Almost got me there.
Thank you, everyone.
One like that.
What do you think?
Because we can probably get Kimberly.